Hey, what's up guys and gals? My name is Rick Nagy. Thanks so much for joining me today. We're going to be talking about I Love Lucy, more specifically about the 57th episode of I Love Lucy called No Children Allowed. If you're a fan of I Love Lucy, other classic TV shows and movies, liking, commenting, and subscribing is the best way to support my channel. It's free to do so, and I do appreciate all of you who show me so much love, so much support. Now, this is a very interesting episode of I Love Lucy. Why? Well, it's the first time that Lucille Ball came back after about a 4-month hiatus of being with little Ricky, or that is Desi Jr., from her real life pregnancy. Remember, when she was on I Love Lucy, you know, she played that she had a little son, but when she was really pregnant in the show, she was really pregnant in real life. And there was a time where she had to be essentially not in the episode. So what did they do? And I've talked about this before in a video. They filmed episodes in anticipation. Basically, not long after Lucy realized she was pregnant, they filmed about 4 to 5 episodes that they would play during Lucy's tenure when she was gone, essentially when she was on maternity leave, before having the baby, and during, and so forth, and then during her recovery before starting the new episodes again. And essentially, No Children Allowed is that first episode. So she went into seclusion, and we had to have a couple reruns from past episodes. That's when we have the first ever reruns, as well as other episodes that were new, but they made as flashback episodes. But coming back to this episode, Lucy was rusty. In fact, everyone on set said that she was really nervous coming back on set and doing everything that she had been doing for a couple of years. It seemed like she didn't go into it smoothly. It was actually very rusty. So remember, after 4 months being gone, Lucille Ball made a lot of mistakes delivering several of her lines, again, due to her being gone for so long. So what did she do? She called for rare retakes of some of the scenes. Now, we don't essentially see all of the retakes, but what happens is if they filmed something incorrectly or there was a mistake, sometimes they would just run through it on I Love Lucy. They never wanted to stop, but in this case, there were several times that they had to stop and restart the scene in front of the live audience and then start filming once again. And that was rare because it took time out of the essentially production. It kind of ruined the flow of the play that they were putting on, essentially. But what did Lucille Ball do? She blamed Desi for her mistakes, and then in turn Desi blamed her, and they started having some problems on set. In fact, many people said that it became noisy, disorderly, and it was kind of like a little bit of a fight, a little bit of a brawl between them, maybe even an uproar. What did she do? Well, she hit him hard in his back in protest. Yeah, this was the beginning of seeing Spicy Lucy on set, doing things that we would later hear of her doing on the Lucy Show. No, apparently they had eyewitnesses see her do that, and in front of the live audience as well. Others have said that she did not do this in real anger, and she was just trying to let off some steam from her nervousness. But I mean, I really want to know your thoughts on this. Do you think this was uncalled for? Should she have done this? I mean, should she have dealt with her nervousness and being away for so long in a different way, kind of embarrassing her husband? Or do you think, hey, this is just how she was, everyone had to deal with it, and she was allowed to have this type of behavior essentially in front of the 300 live audience members? And in the background during the scenes, you hear a lot of baby crying. But don't worry, that was part of the script. So they wanted the baby to be crying, because remember, the baby wouldn't essentially be quiet. He would cry all night, and Mrs. Trumbull would get so upset. So you know the guy, Jerry Hausner? Well, he was the one who provided the baby crying. Yeah, it wasn't the actual baby or little Ricky, who was in fact twins. The Simmons twins. I've talked about that before. But the idea of Jerry Hausner doing the baby sound so he would cry on cue, he would do this off stage, and they would later put it into the filming. And it's a trick that he learned from a clown, Pepito, who we have seen in previous I Love Lucy episodes. And it was perfect because it was done on cue, and it worked so well, no one knowing that it was Jerry Hausner. And if you check out the haircut that Lucy Ricardo had in this episode, Bert French gave it to her. He gave her a new look, but in fact, it was totally abandoned because it seemed to not work well and Lucy not look good on camera. And last and final thing I have to say about Mrs. Trumbull, this is really interesting. If you hear Vivian Vance, she does say the old Mrs. Turnbull, and that's not really a mistake, because what happened is in the actual original script, her name was Mrs. Turnbull, not Mrs. Trumbull. That's why Vivian Vance pronounces it correctly according to the script, Mrs. Trimble. Unfortunately, Lucille Ball kept messing it up and she kept saying Trumbull, and in fact they kept it as that because, I mean, she was the boss, that's what she liked, and they just went for it. So that's a kind of a cool fact that Mrs. Trumbull's name essentially came from a mistake. So that's it. That's all I have for this episode. There is a lot more, but I just want to give you this much because I think these are really cool, interesting things about this episode that you may not have known. The one that surprised me the most was, of course, Lucy hitting Desi on the back in front of everyone during filming. I mean, according to people, it wasn't like a friendly pat on the back. I do have to make that distinction. It wasn't just like, oh, okay. You know, it was a hard slap. And in fact, a lot of people felt a little uncomfortable seeing it because, again, it wasn't just seen as a little slap on the back. It was seen as kind of a fight. They don't see it as she was angry, but it was not usual or polite behavior at all. So love to know your thoughts down below. Thanks so much for your support as always. I'm so happy to see a lot of you are continuing to stay positive, continue to always just be hopeful, as I always remind you at the end of every video. It's always my aim to entertain you, have some fun, look at old classic TV shows, and always remind you to stay happy and positive, and most importantly, always be hopeful. Thank you to all my supporters, especially my Diamond tier patrons: Russ C, Sally N, Vito L, Citizen Kane 359, David D, Jerry D, Jennifer P, and Kevin K. If you want to join this list and be a patron supporter, it does help out so much, and I thank you ahead of time.